Now, I know I said a little while back when I did the review, my first impressions so far of the Acolyte. I was just gonna do like the first 2 episodes, share my thoughts, what I like, what I didn't like, and I said like, I'll eventually return to this once I feel like either I'll watch all these episodes and do my full season 1 review, series review, or I'll get to a point where it's like, I don't really want to watch this anymore. And I'll do my review, and I'll explain as to why. Now, I am gonna keep watching this show for the time being. There's 4 more episodes left. The first 4 are currently available. And to just briefly reiterate my thoughts and my opinions on the first 2 episodes, like, I thought they were fine. At best, like, interesting ideas and settings introduced. I love that we're just not spending time in the same eras of Star Wars that we've spent decades in. It's not set during the period of the original trilogy or the prequels or, in between the new trilogy and the original trilogy now. So I thought that was cool that they are exploring this era that is the High Republic, where the Jedi were supposedly at the height of their power, before their eventual, fall and corruption and, arrogance, ignorance, etc. I was like, this is cool. And I know that it's a recent creation. It was introduced, I guess, like a couple of years ago in books and in comics, and I guess some of those characters are also featured in this show. And I'm unfamiliar with that era of Star Wars completely. My first exposure to Star Wars was watching the original trilogy back in theaters when they did the re-releases in 97, I want to say, in the late 90s before the release of Episode 1, the Phantom Menace. And, of course, I've read the books and things. And, I've kept my ear to the ground when it comes to Star Wars. But, obviously it's been as it often is with this property, a bit of a rough time. And I know this show has been getting a lot of hate, a lot of traction on certain YouTube channels. And, I wanted to give it a fair shot. But I have to admit, those first 2 episodes, which, again, I thought this series was going to be more of a focus on the Sith and how they came back into power and all that. Clearly, that's not what this show is. Might have shifted, might have changed, over time before they finally started shooting it, but, whatever. First 2 episodes I thought were okay. Interesting premise, interesting setting. I got thinking murder mystery, could be cool. This is the problem is that so much of what I've seen so far, at least of the first 2 episodes, it's just the writing just wasn't there. It didn't really. I didn't feel very interested in the mystery, which at this point, there really isn't that much of a mystery outside of maybe one particular thing. But the dialogue wasn't capturing me. The filmmaking wasn't really captivating me at all. And aside from maybe a couple of characters and a couple of performances, so many people were just coming off flat, or in a lot of cases, just pretty bad. Again, I don't really blame the actors for the most part. It's more just the bad, bland writing. But I have to admit, after episode 3, most recently episode 4, which came out a couple of days ago of this specific stream recording, it just keeps getting worse, guys. The last episode, which was a flashback, where we are focusing on Amanda Stenberg's character of both Osha and May, these 2 twins that were born in this witches coven. And again, my thoughts, there's not really about, I know a lot of people are losing their minds because the canon and the history of Star Wars and things are being contradicted in things. And people have all their different opinions on what's canon, what isn't canon, and is it only the movies? Is it the movies and the TV shows? Is it the books and the It's not my complaints about this show doesn't have to do with those specific things, because I feel a lot of that's debatable. My issues with the show, particularly these last 2 episodes, is it's just getting worse in terms of its production values, its directing, its writing, and most certainly the acting. And I hate to harp on this, And I've over time I've learned that, I shouldn't be too critical of the actors, because again, you could be the most talented actor in the world, but if you're given a shit script and shit direction, you're going to probably give a shit performance. It's usually just how it is. But there is definitely some wretched child acting in this show. And it's most certainly the case with the characters of Osha and May, younger versions of them, who we follow for the most part in episode 3. I mean, again, the dialogue they're given isn't great. I mean, we get such wonderful exchanges as the Jedi are bad. No, the Jedi are good. It's like, yeah, that wasn't great. From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Then you were lost. I mean, it's very similar to that prequel writing and that prequel dialogue. It's like, did George Lucas come in here and write some of this himself? Was he assisting with this? And it's not just like the kid actors either. It's like just so many of the other actors. You have sequences that come across unintentionally funny and cringy in some cases that it made me just pause the episode and take like a 15 and 20 minute break so just that I can recover. Whole sequence in episode 3 where we're following this coven of witches who apparently are persecuted because of their views of the Force. Instead, they don't even call it the Force; they call it something called the thread or whatever. And they pick they pick the thread, or they pick at it, and they're able to create life out of nothing, whatever. There's like this whole sequence in episode 3 where they start doing this moan, this chant. It's like, we are one, we are two, we are many. And then there's like there's only one person too. There is like this one person in the background. Actually, no, they're out there at the forefront, but it's only one person. They're going, ah! It's like, what the hell? Just like wailing and screaming and sinning, or not like in tempo of anybody, not on beat of anybody. It's just like, what are we doing? What are we doing with this? And I still think probably episode 3 is the word. And there's just like the way characters just change. It's not like usually, if a character starts out being quote unquote good and becomes later on quote unquote bad, like there's a reason as to why. We see that process. We see that unfold over a film or a TV show, but like with this show, it's kind of happening within like the moment. Like there's this whole sequence. Like that's the thing that's bothering me. Not that they created like, Immaculate Conception or, Ki-Adi-Mundi's birthday is, incorrect. That doesn't really bother me as much as these other things. I think a lot of that other stuff is, again, maybe should be criticized, but I don't think that's what should be given the lion's share of criticism. You have like, you're introduced to like these two sisters, and this has like been their whole life, and they've loved each other. And then suddenly, like, the sister, like one scene ago, is just like, I love you. I don't want, our whole way of life to end. To then go from like that loving, caring sister to go like, I'm gonna murder you, and it's like, and then proceeds to try and do so. It's like, what are we doing? It's just kind of like mind-boggling. It's shocking just the tonal shifts that happen within just a few lines of dialogue. And that's just episode 3. And by the time we get to episode 4, there's just like weird continuity errors with like everything in this episode. It reminded me to an extent of like the latter seasons of Game of Thrones. Now in Game of Thrones, in the latter seasons, where again, this vast continent, it takes people weeks, months to travel across. But then by the time we got to the last 2 seasons, people were able to just fucking teleport. They can go all the way from Winterfell to King's Landing. It feels like in a day and a half, and then they'd be able to fly back. And now they're reporting to Daenerys Targaryen at Dragon. So it's like, what's going? Like this series does the same thing. Well, we have like in the case of May, her character, the Acolyte or possibly Acolyte, whatever, like they arrive on this planet, and the Jedi are trying to get there, but they're recalled back to Coruscant, and then they get to the planet. But it's just like mere moments before Osha and her friend Kamir, or whatever the hell his name is, there's just inconsistencies. So many inconsistencies and so many cases of bad dialogue and set up to potentially interesting and cool things, and just having its legs knocked from under it. Like one of the things that people were like super excited for, chat, like the Wookiee Jedi. We've never seen a Wookiee Jedi in action. There's like a lot you can do with that. Wookiee throwing people around. But what if that Wookiee was throwing people around and had a lightsaber while doing it? Well, too bad. We don't get to see even something like that in this episode. It's taken away from us, and it's just very frustrating. And we're at the halfway point of this particular show, and the mystery, other than like, I guess who that Sith, Acolyte, whatever, Master, Apprentice is, other than that, which it can only be a handful of people now at this point, based on who we've been introduced to. It's just not captivating me. It's not capturing my attention whatsoever. It's just so disappointing and dull. And in many cases, just really, really bad. Like really bad. I mean, at this point, I mean, I'm gonna watch it for the next couple episodes. But we're at the halfway point, and I think you can make a pretty strong argument. This might be the worst live action TV series that Star Wars has produced, which is saying something. It's the same, the Lucasfilm is the same company that made the Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi. It just makes you question, like, okay, what did you do with that, like, $180 million? Obviously, you need more than just money to throw at a project to make it better, but why does it look so cheap? Why is the show, which is one of the most expensive shows that they've made, why is it look as cheap as it does compared to something like Andor, which was less expensive? It doesn't make any sense. And I think it comes down to just, you have a lot of people involved with these projects who I think are just completely unsuited to them. I feel like that they don't really know what they're doing, or even how to shoot things, or even how to write people having basic conversations. It's like, forget the whole Star Wars of it all, forget the whole canon of it all, and Ki-Adi-Mundi's birthday or when he was born or what have you. It's just like the fundamentals of storytelling are just kind of being ignored in this series, and what's being put in place of them is, I think it's just incompetence or borderline incompetence. It's very frustrating because I feel like the initial premise of this series sounded so interesting, but then to see the results of the execution or lack thereof, it's incredibly frustrating. And I want to speak more of this in greater detail after I watch more episodes, but man, if you were hoping that it was going to get better after episode 2, I hate to disappoint you, but it doesn't, in my personal opinion. I think episode 3 and 4 were very disappointing because of, again, not so much the canon of it all, but because it's poorly written and poorly acted and poorly shot too. So, we'll see. I'll keep watching this show. At this point, when it comes to Star Wars chat, I just have such a lack of enthusiasm. I'm always gonna love like the original trilogy and the books like Heir to the Empire, the Thrawn trilogy, and Tales of the Bounty Hunters and Tales of Maz, stuff like that. I always have that. Some of the cartoon shows too, some fun stuff. Rogue One is really great. But, it's just gotten to a point where it's like, yeah, I think it's like watching this, probably more than anything. And, people are like, well, why did it take you this long to realize it? And it's just like, because you want it to be good. You're hopeful. But I think it's gotten to a point where I don't think Star Wars is for me anymore. I don't think I'm the intended audience. I mean, clearly. In most cases, there's some obviously there's exceptions. Andor's fantastic. So excited for Andor. Can't wait. I'm gonna watch that, and I'm hoping it's just as good as the first season. But in terms of all these other projects, especially like this one, it's like it's just I'm just not the intended audience. I'm not the one that they're clearly trying to go after, which is sad because I've been a Star Wars fan for the longest time, and I want to enjoy it, but I want good stuff. I want stuff that I think is of quality. I think we all do at the end of the day. And listen, if you like this show, keep enjoying it, keep liking it. I'm not attacking you in any capacity. It's just, for me, it's not working because I just feel like it's failing at the fundamental aspects of storytelling, which is really frustrating. But I am curious to hear just people's thoughts on these most recent 2 episodes. And again, this is very off the cuff. Just wanted to kind of bring up just because it's been kind of on my mind this week, and it was just something that's like, really? This is what we're doing? This is the best you can do? Nearly $200 million, and this is it? Okay. But yeah. Acolyte, at this point, is proving to be thoroughly disappointing. I would be very surprised. I mean, even if it does manage to, like, fix itself. If it does manage to like have the next 4 episodes be like, wow, it's really good, I'll be like, but that first half, woof. I don't know. I don't expect it to get any better. If anything, maybe it could wrap up in such a way where it's like, well, it wasn't a complete dumpster fire. It was mediocre, not awful, but it's in that territory of being pretty awful. But I am curious to hear other people's thoughts on this, and if you feel like me, like, do you just feel like at this point the Star Wars content, the majority of Star Wars content being made, not all, there's exceptions, Andor again, but do you think it's like just not being made for you anymore? Do you think it's just they're looking for just a totally different audience? Maybe like that YA novel. And again, I even hate like YA, adaptations. There's some great ones, amazing ones, but yeah, it's just not doing it for me anymore.
5 minutes later.
What about you, chap? Did this episode give me the gas? Oh, so gassy. I became a very gassy boy. Not too gassy, not too farty. Just kind of more, I'll pause this. Let me go make some food. Let me browse in my phone a little while. Then I'll come back and be like, they did another cringe thing. All right, I'll pause it. I took breaks, which is the other thing. Again, these episodes aren't long. These are like the shortest live action episodes of like any Star Wars thing out there, I think. It's like, most of them are like 30 minutes long. This one is the shortest episode. Like episode 4 is the shortest episode so far because it has like this recap in the front, which is usually however many minutes, minute and a half. And then it has a shit ton of credits at the end. And so really, I want to say like this episode was maybe 24 to 25 minutes long. Like just new footage. I'm seeing new things that's not a recap or a credit sequence. Is like, Jesus, and they don't give, that's the other thing about this show. Again, there's occasions where they'll have like a nice, like some of these characters have like a nice moment with each other. There'll actually be an exchange of dialogue where they're building up these relationships. And it's like, oh, that was interesting. Like an episode, I think it was episode 2 where Saul and Osha were like talking to each other, and he points, he's like, oh, what's that? And she has a tattoo, and she has to explain the tattoo, and he's like, oh, it's like, oh, that was kind of nice, that felt real. But so few of those, so many of those moments are few and far between. Most of it's just regurgitating exposition. Most of us is just telling us things that we've already seen. Like this whole sequence in episode 4 where they go into this forest, you're looking for this Wookiee Jedi, and there's like these giant roly-poly bugs on these trees, and it's not like, oh, the roly-poly bugs attack. It's what you assume is going to happen. Just only one does, and then it goes like right for the lightsaber, and then you'll have a character, in case all the dum-dums in the audience didn't know, but one of the Jedi's like, it's attracted to the light of the lightsaber. It's like, okay, I didn't need to know that. Like, why do you have to feel the need to say that? And even then, like, an action scene wasn't that interesting. So it's bad. It's really, really bad. But it did not make me gassy. Not yet. I'll let you know, though. Conference, I think episode 4 was better than 3, but the bar was set so low. But who is the audience they're targeting? Brain dead hamsters. That's mean. Star Wars doesn't seem like it's for the fans anymore. It just feels like it's intended for a much younger, newer audience. And also, what's up, Chris? And sorry, I'm like, oh, you're good, too tall. You're good. No, I think you're right. I think that's what this series seems like it's being directed at. I mean, I think it's smart to do movies and TV shows or whatever that's not connected to the original trilogy, the prequels. Like, hey, something new. I think that's something that is enticing. It's like, oh, I don't need to go in with any prior knowledge of something. Okay, cool. And I think that worked in Acolyte's advantage in leading up to its release. But yeah, I feel like I agree. I think they're definitely going for a much younger audience. I think, yeah, there are people that have like, the same audience that gravitated to things like probably the Harry Potter, and or the Hunger Games, things like, it's like definitely that YA audience. Which again, it's not to say like I'm speaking ill of young adult novels or fiction or anything like that. And not all. Again, there's some great pieces of YA fiction out there. So many. But that's just the audience that clearly seem to be going after this. I don't think it's working. At this point, I really do think it depends on when you were born. Yeah, I guess so. When I think of the little rat guy, Kamir, he's my favorite character. I mean, God, he's the one that most of the time feels the most human. because he has a personality other than an exposition guy. Like, because there's so many characters that are just there for exposition or just to go over rules and regulation. And the Jedi fucking suck. They really emphasize the Jedi are just shitty. They really, really are. That's the other thing about this show. It made me nostalgic of the Jedi of the original trilogy. And I'm not talking like even before the prequels and things. I feel like the whole Jedi becoming more uninteresting didn't start with this show or of Disney's acquisition. I think it started with the prequels personally. And I know a lot of prequel, defenders and fans would be like, "No, you're wrong." Because when we first heard about what the Jedi were, it was from like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke, like those, and Yoda. Like those are the three guys from the original trilogy, and they were all like really cool and interesting. And it was like, oh, you can train these powers. And that was even before we kind of knew them as. I know they incorporated like elements of like monks and things, but they almost felt like, I mean, literal knights, Jedi knights. It felt like that was the thing you want to aspire to be, this hero. That's what Luke became by Return of the Jedi, and he was so cool when he achieved that power. He was using it for good, and it made the Jedi feel larger than life. It was just so interesting. But then I think, again, this is what happens. Anytime you, I think, overly explain something or dissect it over time, it becomes less interesting. There's some cases it becomes more interesting, but then there's are cases where it doesn't. And I think it's the case of the Jedi with the prequels and showing their hubris and the corruption and the arrogance and the ignorance and the fact that so many of them are stoic. Like, all of them are stoic. So many of them are stoic. And I was like, fuck, these guys just kind of suck. I don't want to be around them. That's why I'd rather hang out with, like, spies like Andor or bounty hunters or rogues or smugglers and shit in the universe, because they're just more interesting. Like, the Jedi are just, they all seem to be just this one fucking thing. And it's just these sticks in the mud. It's like, god damn it. And that's what the show is just emphasized. Also, it's definitely portraying the Jedi in a very negative light. There's no question. So that's not helping. That's not helping either. And so if you think a complete reboot of Star Wars could work, man, God, the people would go fucking crazy. I don't even want to see like a reboot of any of these movies. I would say, like, I just want to tell new stories in a completely different time period that's not connected to any of this, but the people go like, that's what the Acolyte is, Chris. And I'm like, that's fair. I just wish they would do something like KOTOR related. Just do that, tell stories 4,000 years before the events of all this shit, where it doesn't affect anything happens in the future. Just go and do that. At the same time, I'm kind of scared about them doing that now. This is the quality of their work. And this is the result. A full reboot, you'll get some people pissed off. I mean, I don't need a full reboot. I'd be a little curious to see what that would look like. What would you do? I don't know. I really don't know. It's a great question. That's something I want to put a pin in right now, Xavier, because I want to maybe come back to that. What if I was in charge of Lucasfilm, what would I do? I think I've answered this question before about different types of movies and TV shows and things that I think could be like really fun. But yeah, for right now, I want to give it some more thoughts. Good question. The show is tied with Young Jedi Adventures, the Star Wars Kids animated series that started last year. Both this and the series taking place in the High Republic YA Star Wars novel series that Disney has been pushing for the last couple of years. There you go. That's what it is. Dipple Disney has no idea what to do with Star Wars and are too stubborn to pump the brakes. Yeah, they need to fucking stop. I mean, that's what needs to be done. Like, reboot, whatever, remake. They need to stop. Like, we need to, finish whatever you have in production. Like, Andor's obviously, I think for all I know, principal photography's been done for a while, and so they're just doing, post-production. So have that, but everything, all of these other projects, just put the brakes on them immediately. And you need someone else in charge over there. You really do. Like, you need to gut that company, get some people in there that know what they're. I'm not even saying like you need Star Wars experts. I think should have people knowledgeable about the universe and things and knows how it works. Like, you need those people, but you just need fucking filmmakers that know what they're doing. That's the big thing. It's like Tony Gilroy, for example. It's like he wasn't like a Star Wars guy. He didn't grow up with it. I mean, he knew of it, he watched it, but he wasn't obsessed. And then for like Andor, and one thing he did know was obviously how to make TV. Knew how to make movies, obviously, but he surrounded himself with people that were knowledgeable about Star Wars, and he would ask them and say, hey, would this make sense to have this? You know, what should we have in the background? You know, how, you know, the whole canon of it all, right? And he had those people in place, and it made it work. It made it work spectacularly, where everything, we didn't have any of these issues like we do with Acolyte or whatever. They just need some genuine talent in there that isn't railroaded to do whatever specific thing that like Lucasfilm just thinks it needs to be, and they just don't have that in place. If anything, it seems to be getting worse, except for the exception of Andor. Oh, the little rat guy. Oh, that thing. Oh yeah. I forgot he was in it. Yeah, I didn't care for him. I thought he was annoying. They're trying to appeal to the audience, but I don't think they're doing that good of a job. Oh, I agree. It doesn't matter what audience you're aiming for. Shit is shit. Shit is shit. Steal the baby. Steal the baby. And the prequels revealed they were a bunch of morons directly caused their own almost extinction. Yeah. Yeah, so people that are saying, like, oh, Disney ruined Jedi, it's like, I think the Jedi were being demystified or made worse in the prequel era, personally. I think it started there. The Jedi had Mystique, yeah, very much like the prequels came out and the Mystique was gone, just another action hero, essentially. Yeah, if that, just not even just action heroes, just more, just uninteresting, just dull, you know. Like Joe never stops being interesting. Before the prequels, Jedis felt like badass warriors, and the prequels made them basically bureaucrats. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Yeah, just they just there was like this mystery about them, and like, because we didn't know what their order was, we didn't know what the structure was. Like the word Padawan wasn't even like part of the vernacular yet. It was apprentice, right? And it was just like it was like mysterious, and that mysteriousness is gone because now we just see it all laid bare. We see what it all looks like, and it's like, oh, you know. It's not that interesting. Do I hate to be this guy, but I think Hard Reese says need for Star Wars. I mean, they're going to do what they want to do. If they choose to do that, be like, all right, let's see what at this point, I'm at this point where I was like, all right, let's see what you do with it. You know, yeah, I think you're going to have, you know, ignoring all the voices of people who are going to be mad. Of course they are, but okay. You know, I'm at that point now. It's like, sure, show me what you got. I just don't trust the apparatus in place right now. I don't trust the people that are in the majority of people that are in place right now. Star Wars lacks artistic vision, excuse me. Rogue One, Andor, Season 1, and Season 2 had artistic vision. Yeah, Mandalorian. Yeah. I saw a tweet that suggested a great idea, and please stick with me on this. They need to hire more creatives who aren't super fans. Tony Gilroy's, that's pretty much what I just said. Tony Gilroy's openly mid. He couldn't care less about Star Wars and just wants to tell interesting stories in that world, and he's made some of the most acclaimed stuff. Maybe go more. Basically, exactly. You probably said this when I was saying it, so yeah. Agreed. The shareholders! Just go a different galaxy and star from the beginning. No Jedis, no Sith, no damn Skywalkers. Yeah. They need to move away from that. In my opinion, Star Wars, make the Jedi cool again. At this point, there's a way to do it. I think they have done that. I think they've even stuff with like Cal Kestis and stuff. Like he's a really cool Jedi that we followed, you know, in the video games. And they have more freedom to do what they want in the video games too. In my opinion, Star Wars works best when you lean to the genre, part of which was the most recent stuff I'm missing, Mando lean to Westerns, and lean to spy through. Yeah, they need to incorporate different genres, 100%. I agree, because it made it feel fresh, made it feel different. We need that autistic vision. We do. But yeah, it was something I wanted to bring up, Chad. I was like, let me talk about this because I was thinking about these last two episodes, but we'll see. We'll see.